Binge the full week of The Ray Taylor Show ad-free over at inspireddisorder.com/plus.
This is The Ray Taylor Show.
This is my top 5 Tremors movies. Tremors is a horror comedy movie. Started off as just one movie, as all franchises do, which is one that I grew up with loving. I grew up in the Coachella Valley, which is like the Palm Springs area. We are known for earthquakes here in Southern California. So having a horror movie based around the idea of earthquakes actually being giant killer worms that live under the sand was terrifying as a kid growing up. And, of course, revisiting these movies as an adult, the comedy is funny. It's very campy. But the original Tremors is really the only one that I grew up on. And I knew, like, a little while after, when I had grown up a little bit more, I was in my 20s or whatever, I realized that they had kept making Tremors movies, which was mind-blowing back when DVDs were a thing. I remember buying the first 3 Tremors movies on like a bonus triple pack type of a deal. And even still, I was blown away that they had made even 3 movies. And now to see that they've done 7 movies, I figured now is the time to revisit, watch all of the Tremors movies, and do my official rankings of all 7. Well, I'm used to do my top 5 Tremors movies. So there will be 2 movies that will be left off. But let's get into it, shall we? Starting off with my number 5 favorite Tremors movie. This is a movie that is the most recent of the Tremors movies. Tremors 7, you could call it. And that is Tremors Shrieker Island. This one, as many of the Tremors movies, follow our lead, Burt Gummer. The Tremors franchise started off, Burt Gummer has been in every single one of the Tremors movies, and the franchise itself is really placed squarely on the shoulders of the character Burt Gummer, who is a right-wing gun nut from the first one, who had his bunker and he had all of these guns, and he's off-grid, prepper, survivalist type of a guy. But very lovable character, despite being the very like anti-government, pro-gun type of person that he is. But it suits itself for this movie franchise, and Burt Gummer does have a heart. But that being said, whatever. So in most of the movies, it's like Burt Gummer going to a place to eradicate these tremors. And in Shrieker Island, it is obviously an island. It is the first time they are in the jungle, which is pretty cool. Like, as far as scenario, it utilizes the newer visual effects that you can have. Some of the acting is interesting. You have a lot of these movies, the format for these movies is older guy paired up with a younger guy and then a bunch of people around them. And the younger guy is kind of like always kind of poking at the older guy. And in this one, Burt Gummer being the older guy, Jimmy, played by John Heder, Napoleon Dynamite himself, plays kind of the younger guy who is kind of in the movies just previous to this. It was Jamie Kennedy. Early on, the first movie, that was Kevin Bacon, and then there was a different older guy before Burt Gummer became like that main old guy. But yeah, Burt Gummer. There's Graboid has been detected in and not just Graboids, like their eggs, like the life cycle of the Graboid life cycle has been developed over the course of this franchise, and they've been discovered on one of these islands. So they get Burt Gummer to come in and help them out, because there is this not elite, but this like high-end like hunting parties that are set up for like tech people to go out and hunt these things, and they are getting out of control, so they get Burt Gummer to do it. And it is the newest one. It is also, there's spoilers for Shrieker Island, but it is the movie that one of our main characters, let's say, dies. And that main character, you may be able to, since there's only one real main character that's kind of survived throughout the lineage of this franchise, and the way in which it happens is kind of a bummer. This movie almost didn't make the list, but then again, these movies aren't the greatest. These are not cinematic masterpieces by any means, but the action was great. I think the effects that they used, the blending of special effects and just kind of how the visual effects of this franchise have evolved over the years, I think it was great as well. Fun movie. Richard Brake plays Bill, who's kind of the guy who organizes these hunting parties, and he is pretty great in every movie that I've seen him in. He was in a Rob Zombie movie, I think called 33, where he has like this great monologue. Just a great actor altogether, and he plays kind of this guy who's the head of this hunting party that gets unhinged. But yeah, a pretty fun movie. Coming in at number 5 is Shrieker Island. Tremors Shrieker Island, I should say. Moving on to my number 4 favorite Tremors movie. This one could be controversial. Some people think this is one of the best Tremors movies, but in my opinion, it was not. There was an aspect of this movie that was very disappointing, and that is why it is all the way down at number 4. Coming in at number 4, my 4th favorite Tremors movie is Tremors Ii Aftershocks. Now, this one, obviously coming out, this one came out 6 years, I believe, after the first one. The first movie, we have Fred Ward is the lead in this film. It has not been, the baton has not been passed yet to Burt Gummer's character, but Fred Ward playing Earl is our main old guy. And then the young guy, who is the, kind of the rambunctious, kind of causing problems, smartass of the group, is Grady Hoover. And Grady Hoover is by far the most annoying character in the franchise. It is the reason why this movie is only number 4 on my list, because I think Fred Ward is pretty great. There's always like some kind of female love interest. This one is played by Helen Shaver, who plays Kate, who is a former Playboy bunny, now scientist. So similar to the first one, one of our leads is attracted to a scientist who's studying seismology. I think actually she is a geologist. But they come into contact, and this is also where we see that the Graboid version of the Tremors is not the only version of this creature's life cycle. This movie shows Shriekers for the first time, which are kind of the bipedal type of, more like warthog-ish kind of version. So they're not under the ground necessarily. They're on top of the ground. They can't hear, but they see with infrared. So it changes up the rules a bit, which I appreciate that. I appreciate that the series itself allowed these creatures to kind of evolve in a way to where there's different versions of them throughout their life cycle. And this one's the Shrieker version. I thought it was fun. This is this season, Earl is being charged with going to Mexico. There is an oil refinery in Mexico that's being attacked by these Graboids, and Earl is hired to take them out. And Grady is just like some random dude who shows up when the person who comes to get Earl to hire them for this job. Like, Grady just happens to be there, and he is by far the most annoying of that kind of archetype for this story. And of course, while they're there in Mexico, they're running into issues. Earl's having problems, so he calls his buddy Burt Gummer, to come and help them out. They've been using these remote control cars with bombs on them to kind of just go out and go fishing for these graboids, but they've evolved. They've gotten smarter. Like in every movie, these Tremors, they get smarter. They learn. But we also find out that they also evolve into the Shriekers. And Burt Gummer comes out to help them out, which is great. It does have a great ending, big explosion. The oil refinery, quote unquote, is basically just like a giant shack. Like it is. It doesn't at all feel like it's an oil refinery at all, but that's okay. There's a few reasons why it's coming in at number 4. Obviously, it's also a step down as far as just pulling off these effects and things. But the character Grady was by far the most annoying aspect of it, and one of the reasons why it got knocked down so far. But coming in at number 4 is Tremors Ii Aftershocks. And now a quick word from our sponsor. Now you can wear the many faces. Original art by Ray Taylor. Select pieces from the ongoing series of abstract ink paintings. All products made with high quality materials, made right here in the USA. Go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF merch to browse the entire collection and save yourself an extra 10% when you check out by using coupon code RTSTMF. So once again, go to inspireddisorder.com/TMF merch and save 10% when you use coupon code RTSTMF. And now, back to our show. Moving on to my number 3 favorite, my third favorite Tremors movie. This one is We Are Firmly Planted with Burt Gummer as the lead. And this is Burt Gummer coming back to where it all started, Perfection, Nevada. This movie, coming in at number 3, my third favorite Tremors film, is Tremors 3, Back to Perfection. So Burt has been on this mission out in Mexico. I think he went somewhere else after Mexico to do this. Obviously Aftershocks, so this comes after Aftershocks. And I love this because it is back in perfection. I love this because we have some of the people from the original movie are back in the mix. Obviously, the Chang, who ran the convenience store, dies in the first one. But we have his daughter, Jody, who's running the store, which is awesome. We have Jack, who is running these, like, desert. It's almost like if Tremors 1 was Jaws, Tremors 3 is Jaws the Ride, where he's doing these kind of these safaris where he's taking people out to go experience these graboids out in nature. But it's all fabricated, which I love that aspect of it, where he's got his buddy, you know, pretending. And it's also kind of commenting on the special effects that these movies use, where it's like, you know, just having puffs of sand go into the air, or like, you know, the rolling sand as the creature's going under the sand, like very basic, you know, or you have the first person view of the camera as it's chasing a person. Like there's definite tricks that they've used throughout this franchise to show these graboids without having to do actual special effects to show them. And this movie is commenting on that in a lot of ways with Jack and his like ride, his safari, his fake safari that he's doing. But this one introduces us to the third version, the third metamorphosis of these creatures. So it starts off as graboids, the giant worms. Then it goes into the Shriekers, where it's these things that walk around and eat food and can kind of kind of spontaneously mutate into multiples. This one introduces us to the ass blasters, which are these creatures that they have wings and they shoot gas out of their internal functions are able to create some like an explosion that comes out of their ass that shoots them up into the sky, and then they kind of glide down. So they don't really fly necessarily, but they shoot themselves into the air, and then with their wings they kind of fly around. So now we have a situation where these monsters are above. They have not only do they have heat vision that the Shriekers have, but they also have the ability to hear. So they have two of the abilities from the Shriekers and the Graboids. And it's a lot of fun. Again, Burt Gummer is brought back to help out. Obviously, I mean, he's our main character, really, and he goes back to Perfection where he's been. And he's, we also have the two, Mindy and Nancy, from the first one. Mindy being the girl who was not only in the first Tremors movie, but also the girl in Jurassic Park. She's older now. She's like a teenager or maybe early 20s in this one. And she's back with her mom, Mindy. So we're seeing like the same town from the first one. We have some of the original characters from the first one. And the movie's kind of, in some ways, making fun of or commenting on the special effects that they use, the practical effects in the movie, as well as, Jack's stuff. So I really enjoyed this one. It was a lot of fun. I like the fact that it's back in Perfection. So for all those reasons, Tremors 3 Back to Perfection is my third favorite Tremors movie. Moving on now to my second favorite Tremors movie. This one will be controversial. This one almost made number one. The number one slot was there's only one movie that at all made me even question what the number one slot was, and that was this movie. Coming in at number 2, Tremors 5 Bloodlines. And this one, a lot of people do not like Tremors Bloodlines, as well as Tremors 6 Cold Day in Hell, because of the addition of Jamie Kennedy, who plays the younger person who is matched up with the older Burt Gummer. This one, not only is it Jamie Kennedy being added, Burt Gummer is like a survivalist now, and Jamie Kennedy comes in to be his new camera guy to film his survivalist videos that he puts online. And actually, not a big fan of Jamie Kennedy in general, but in this movie, I think it's perfect. I think I really love it. It's also, I would say, the best CG out of all of maybe the newest one, maybe Shrieker Island has a little bit better CG, but the CG in Bloodline I love. They ramped up everything. This one, they are charged with going to South Africa now to go battle the Tremors, this is the first time they've been out of North America. The first movie is in Perfection, Nevada. Second movie, Mexico. Third movie, Back to Perfection. Fourth movie is a prequel that takes place in Perfection. So this was the first time we've gone off the continent to South Africa. The versions, of creatures are like beefed up, like they're version 2.0. The visual effects are amazing. The ass blasters, like all of the visual effects are awesome. It definitely has more action-y moments in this one, but there are some moments in this movie that are the best thing in all of the movies. There's this scene where they're like on a bridge, and then like Burt Gummer comes and he like kills an ass blaster by throwing a machete, and it's just like these crazy action-y moments. I loved it. I absolutely loved Bloodlines, which was surprising because knowing that Jamie Kennedy was going to be in this movie, I knew that it was going to. There was big potential for me not liking it, but I did. I loved it, and the added thing, which some people don't like either. But of course, we find out that Jamie Kennedy's character is actually Burt Gummer's son that he had with that he didn't know about. He had an affair on in Florida one year, and the byproduct of that affair is Jamie Kennedy's character, and who plays Travis, and I like that. I mean, it makes sense. It forces Burt Gummer to kind of have a different dynamic with this kid, which is sad because like this Bloodline I love so much. Like I considered making this my number one, but ultimately I couldn't. The sequel to this, Tremors 6, Cold Day in Hell, which spoilers is not on the list, is basically almost a rehashing. It's almost a remake of Bloodline, but set in the quote-unquote Arctic. And all of the kind of back and forth and issues that Burt Gummer has with his son are the same issues, despite the fact that a lot of those issues get resolved at the end of Bloodlines. Like Burt Gummer like loves that he has a kid, and he's like, there's a bond that is formed at the end of Bloodline that Tremors 6 just kind of disregards completely and acts like they need to rebuild this bond again. So yeah, number 2 is Tremors 5 Bloodline. Just great. I was so surprised while I was watching this. The aesthetic of being in Africa is crazy. The creature designs for these, like the upgraded creature designs, are amazing, where it would feel like there would be different versions of these creatures in Africa. Like they evolved slightly differently than they were in North America. So yeah, Bloodlines, my second favorite. Join Inspired Disorder Plus today. Head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus to join. Membership includes members-only discounts and deals. You get access to the Ray Taylor Show completely ad-free, as well as bonus episodes. You get access to the complete live painting archive. You also get access to every single podcast ever produced by Inspired Disorder, hosted by Ray Taylor. You get access to Ray Taylor's personal blog, as well as the opportunity to ask me any questions. So if you want to start a podcast, you're into art, ask me anything. And so many more things are being added every day to Inspired Disorder Plus. So sign up today, become a member, head on over to inspireddisorder.com/plus and become an Inspired Disorder Plus member today. My number one Tremors movie should be no question. There should be no question. It's not going to be Cold Day in Hell. And it's definitely not the prequel, which was fun. It was almost on the list, but I decided to take it off because it kind of changes some of the story a bit, which I'll talk about in discards. But my number one favorite Tremors movie, without a doubt, is the first Tremors movie. I mean, you have just a great premise. The execution is amazing. The practical effects are great. Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward play a good combo. Burt Gummer is just a side character, but he's great with his wife, who is Reba McEntire. This small desert town that gets invaded by these underground sharks, these desert sharks, and just such a fun movie, man. From the start, and even the female kind of love interest for Kevin Bacon is just this super nerdy scientist girl who, you wouldn't think would be the love interest, and it takes a while before that kind of attraction it builds on it. It's smart. These monsters are smart, as is kind of the trope. They're messy. They're drooling a lot. I love it. I love all of it. Even like, even the characters naming these things Graboids was something that the sequels kind of latched onto with naming the monsters as they evolved. Naming the Shriekers, I mean, not as goofy a name, Shrieker, but Ass Blaster is definitely in the same oeuvre, the same kind of feel as Graboid. So, by far, my favorite Tremors movie is Tremors. And what I like also, to go back to Tremors 3, Back to Perfection, is that this, and even the second one, is that the franchise for those made it like Tremors became widely known and became part of pop culture, where there's like comics and all these kinds of other things. Like even there's a running gag in the third one where Jack is like learning all these things for the first time, and then the daughter of Chang, Walter Chang, is like, why don't you read the comics? All this information is in the comics. Like the world they built from this first one is great. But without a doubt, my favorite is Tremors 1. The thing I didn't like about the prequel, which is interesting, it is probably the most like Western of Western movies. You have Michael Gross playing, instead of playing Burt Gummer, because it's set in like the 1800s, he's playing a relative of Burt Gummer, which doesn't make sense, that because he, like, it didn't seem like he was from there originally. It seems like in Tremors, it seems like Burt Gummer and his wife Heather went to that area specifically because it was so secluded, so they could have their fortress of solitude kind of a thing. They could have their bunker away from society. They could be off the grid. Also, with the prequel, I didn't like that makes the first one worse, is that the Chang family started in that first Western, but for some reason Walter Chang still has an Asian accent, generations later. Like, he wouldn't have, like, if he was like the fourth generation Chang to grow up in Perfection, Nevada, he would not have an Asian accent. So for those two reasons, I had to take, because it was almost on the list, I had to take the first, which I'm blanking on the name of the first one. What was it called? Tremors 4. I forget the beginning. But yeah, Tremors, a fun franchise, like it like really fun. But the first movie, I'm telling you, the first movie and then Tremors Bloodline are really good. I think they're really good, like, versions of this Tremors story, and executed really well. Everything else is kind of like B-movie schlock. Not that those two are like the upper echelon of B-movie schlock, whereas the rest of them are very much B-movies. Tremors Shrieker Island is probably the closest to Bloodlines as far as like quality effects and things like that. I just didn't really care about Napoleon Dynamite being in the movie. Like, I would much rather had Jamie Kennedy. But nothing is as good as the first Tremors. The cast is amazing. All of the characters are great. And it's also the movie I grew up on. So it was a no-brainer for me. Although I almost put Bloodlines above it. Almost. I thought about it, because it was so much fun. And I think it was just the recency bias of like, oh, this is so cool. Especially after watching a lot of the sequels that are like, the effects get really bad. But yeah, I love Bloodlines too. So let me do it one more time. This is my top 5 Tremors movies. Starting off with number 5 is Tremors Shrieker Island. Number 4 is Tremors Ii Aftershocks. My number 3 favorite Tremors movie is Tremors 3 Back to Perfection. My number 2 favorite Tremors movie is Tremors 5 Bloodlines. And my number 1 favorite Tremors movie is Tremors. Let me know how you would rank the Tremors movies in the comments. Hit me up on social media. I want to know. And if you haven't watched the Tremors movies, do yourself a favor. I think most of them are available on streaming. I don't think I had a problem. I forget where I streamed them, what platform it was, but they were all available pretty much. And one of them, the most newest one, is on Netflix. So check them out. And watch out. Watch out when the earth is quaking. It might be a graboid. New episodes of The Ray Taylor Show come out every single day. Subscribe on YouTube and everywhere our podcasts are found. Binge the full week over at inspireddisorder.com/plus. Buy Ray Taylor Show merch over at inspireddisorder.com. And follow the show on Instagram at Ray Taylor Show. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Peace out!
Today is the day where you wake up and you realize that everything that you've been dreaming about, everything that you've been wanting, every goal and wish and hope that you've ever had can become real. Dreams can come true. What you manifest in your mind, you can bring to reality.